Tracy. Don't judge me, John Starks.
Battleground New York City, the fight for your vote. Your front row seat to the battle for New York's next mayor. It's the old guard clinging to power, chasing a candidate they never saw coming. Every night, our experts break it down.
What New Yorkers want above all else is authenticity.
We're listening to the people who matter most, you, the voters. And when the candidates sit across from us, nothing's off the table. What's your plan to make New York City feel like a safer city?
S.E. Cupp, that's your perception. Of course, there's a lot of crime.
So what's happening right now? Let's dive in. Welcome to Battleground NYC, the fight for your vote. It's Wednesday, October 29th. We're just 6 days away, believe it or not, from this all-important New York City mayoral race. Later in today's show, we're going to talk to Queensborough President Donovan about the state of the race, but also about the devastation of Hurricane Melissa as it ripped through Jamaica and the voters here in New York City that are affected by it. But first, let's get to some news. Joining me now is Katie Honan, reporter for The City and co-host of the FAQ NYC podcast. Welcome back, Katie.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, so let's talk about early voting. We know over the weekend it was a huge story, record turnout. As we're now midweek, is turnout still steady with people voting ahead of Election Day?
We haven't seen those huge weekend numbers that we did that actually broke records. And I think by Monday, we had more early voters that we had in all of early voting from 2021. But voting still remains steady. It's supposed to rain tomorrow. I know things like the weather can affect turnout. I saw someone tweet that people want to get the special Halloween sticker on Friday. So there's a lot of different factors that go into when people vote. But I do think this will end up being a historic turnout election. And we might see record-breaking votes cast by Tuesday.
And as I mentioned, we're going to talk about this later with Queensborough President Donovan. But given the level of damage caused by Hurricane Melissa and the number of Jamaican American and Caribbean American voters in New York City, have any of the candidates made comments about the storm and, what it means for New Yorkers?
Yeah, all the candidates have posted about it and vowing to support both Jamaicans here. I know it's also Hurricane Melissa went through Cuba today as well for the Cuban population here in New York City. And it's also the 13th anniversary of Hurricane Sandy, which hit New York City in 2012 on this day and was devastating and deadly. And I think that's also top of mind for a lot of New Yorkers.
Agreed. Yeah. Okay, let's get on to more political news. Andrew Cuomo has a new ad out. It doesn't seem like he used AI this time. Let's take a look.
Life in New York is tough right now. Candidates who need on-the-job training can't fix it. I see a new day just over the horizon. With 5,000 more cops on the beat, the homeless off the streets, and 500,000 new affordable homes. Bringing New Yorkers together by unifying, not divided. Join me, and let's build a better New York starting on day one.
Pretty upbeat for Cuomo. Pretty positive, pretty hopeful. How do you read his parting message to voters as we close in on Election Day?
I think, like you said, his previous ad that got mocked mercilessly because of the use of AI. It's similar, this ad, because it's highlighting his experience, his line about you don't need someone who needs on-the-job training. I think that's obviously a dig at Zohran Mamdani. So it touches on a lot of the criticisms he's had throughout the campaign of his main opponent. My question with a lot of these things is, we'll get rid of the homeless. I don't know where they're going to go. It kind of underestimates the really difficult task it is to get the street population into supportive housing or homes. So promises like that. But again, I think with the music and the crowd of people following him, he's trying to present a much more positive and upbeat message going into Election Day.
The Super PAC, Defend NYC, which is an anti-Mamdani Super PAC, it's supporting Cuomo, sent voters a text that used President Trump's language, calling Mamdani a communist. What can you tell us about those texts?
Yeah, those are texts sent out. And again, the PACs are not affiliated with a campaign, or at least they're not supposed to be, although there was a story in Crain's today about one of the PACs. There was some conversations with Cuomo per their reporting. I think a lot of the PACs surrounding Cuomo and supporting Cuomo. I've seen the ads on social media. They are very fear-mongering. There's the one that has the word jihad over Mamdani's face. So that seems to be in line with a lot of the messaging from some of the political action groups supporting Cuomo. The candidate and the campaign has nothing to do with the PAC, but that's incorrect messaging that could be, or it's trying to be damaging to the front runner.
Yes. We'll see. Yesterday, Cuomo and former Governor David Patterson and current Mayor Eric Adams visited a nursing home and said, they were the Democrats and Mamdani is not a real Democrat with like core Democratic values. Listen, scaring older voters is a strategy. It's a strategy. It might even be good politics at this stage in the game. What's your take?
I agree that it's their strategy. And I think it also ignores the fact that parties always change. The Democratic Party of today is different than when Andrew Cuomo's father was running. And there's a messaging now, especially with a much more left-leaning message, and a lot of disillusionment from younger voters and even older voters with the Democratic Party nationally and locally, and what they do and don't speak out about, and what they've actually valued. And I think for a lot of people, the 2024 presidential election, really, they were upset with the Democratic Party because of that and their eventual loss. So, yeah, I mean, the scare tactic is a part of Cuomo's campaign. I will note former Governor Patterson, he's endorsed two people, 3 separate times in this race. First it was Cuomo, then it was Adams, and it's back to Cuomo. So he's kind of gone back and forth.
I know. I saw someone call him like the kiss of death.
Politico called him
Patterson's endorsement, which you don't want. Okay, Katie, I've got more questions for you, so stay right there. Battleground NYC will be right back after this break. We're back with Battleground NYC, the fight for your vote. Let's get back to more news and headlines from the campaign trail with Katie Honan, reporter for The City and co-host of the FAQ NYC podcast. Katie, I'm sure you've seen this because you're covering this race so well. But there's this controversy now between former Mayor Bill de Blasio and the Times of London over alleged comments, but not even alleged. He didn't make them. But they were comments he was supposed to have made about Mamdani's ideas being unworkable, which was a bad look because Bill de Blasio has endorsed Mamdani. He's a big supporter of Mamdani. He says they're not true, that they were like an imposter, gave those words. What do you know about this very weird story?
I just, the Times of London last night said that it was a Bill de Blasio impersonator, which I didn't know we had here in the city.
Right.
I didn't know we had Bill de Blasio impersonators, and I am desperate to know who successfully impersonated Bill de Blasio. If it was AI or something, so that was the confusing thing. I think even reading those quotes, my first thought was that they were real, but Bill de Blasio was speaking for so long trying to make a point that he did this long-winded wind-up, which he does before, but it's really rare to see a completely impersonated, fabricated article. I feel bad for any journalist in that, because if it was a good impersonator, maybe he really believed it. But that is the interesting thing. And it was you wonder what someone's motivation is, because it clearly was to maybe undermine Mamdani and that kind of thing. But
Yeah.
again, every day there's something very, very bizarre in this campaign, and that was yesterday's.
Well, it's the weirdest kind of disinformation. We deal with disinformation in journalism all the time, and we have to get really good at discerning it. But it was weird. How is Mayor Eric Adams trying to thwart Zoran Mamdani even before he potentially gets into office with this rent guidelines board? What can you tell us there?
So it was reported, I think the Post was the first to report it, that the mayor planned to appoint this woman, Eleanor Osrugo, who's a realtor turned reality star and a very close friend of the mayor's, to the board in an effort to kind of stack the board with people who would not freeze the rent for rent stabilized and rent regulated tenants in New York City. She told the New York Times that she won't take the job, but there's been lots of reporting showing, which also comes off as a little cynical. He's going to stack it with people who just to thwart the potential next mayor's plans to help rent stabilize and rent controlled tenants in New York City. But so far, we haven't seen anyone come forward who would definitely join the board.
Okay. In another blow to Republican nominee Curtis Sliwa, the Republican city councilwoman Ina Vernikov is throwing her support behind Andrew Cuomo. Who is she, and why is this potentially significant?
Councilmember Vernikov, she represents Southern Brooklyn. She's a very, very far right Republican council member. She also one time brought a broken gun to a rally at Brooklyn College. I guess against the protesters. They were pro-Palestinian protesters. So that's sort of maybe the most well-known thing about her. But I think you see some of the Republican council members who are still backing Curtis Sliwa. They seem loyal to him as a Republican candidate. Her flip didn't surprise me that much because she isn't often aligned with those other Republican candidates. And I think for a lot of people, they fear a Mayor Mamdani more than they support anyone else in the race.
Yes, right. We're seeing that too. Okay, before I let you go, I really just wanted to ask you about the last debate, which you co-moderated. Being the moderator of these debates, it's such a unique vantage point. What were your biggest takeaways? I don't know if anyone's asked you that, but I'm curious from where you were sitting, what were some of your biggest takeaways from the night?
I think Zoran Mamdani's reluctance to say how he will vote on the ballot measures. I think I heard from people who were really turned off by that to some degree, why he won't commit to these 6 ballot questions. 4 of them are related to things that would take away some power from the city council, but would, at least for those who support it, would help facilitate the creation of more affordable housing. He's long been uncommitted to those things, so that was one thing. I think Andrew Cuomo came out swinging in maybe a more aggressive way. And Curtis Sliwa was the Curtis Sliwa that everybody in New York City knows. He's a showman. And I think that was the Curtis Sliwa we saw on stage. Some of the more viral moments seemed to just be Curtis's response. I think for a lot of, especially younger voters, they're getting introduced to Curtis Sliwa for the first time. And
which is wild to think about.
For those of us in New York City, we've known him our whole lives. So we're just used to how he is. So that was sort of that. And
he's such an analog character. You wonder if he translates to like the Gen Z world. I just wonder how they receive him. Okay, so if you had to say if someone won that night, I'm just curious your opinion. Who would you say won the night?
I have no winners in debates except the voters who are enjoying the democratic system. But yeah, I think most people come into the debate knowing how they're going to vote and maybe taking away a few. They get a few takeaways from the candidates. But I mean, it would be great if if a debate changed people's votes and minds. But I think most people come into it knowing what they want.
I think you're right. It's sports, right? Like if you're tuning into the debate, you're pretty politically tuned in, right? Yeah. You're deciding to watch 2 hours of this for a night. So it's like sports. I agree. But you did a great job. I loved the debate because I love political sports, and the debates are the best we get. So thanks for doing that. And thanks for joining us today.
Thanks so much. Have a good one.
You too. And we'll be back with more Battleground NYC right after this. We're back with Battleground NYC, the fight for your vote. And joining me now for the bigger picture is Queens Borough President Donovan Richards. Mr. Richards, welcome back to the show.
Oh, so good to
It's
see
good to
you.
see you too. And I want to get your take on the state of the race in these final closing hours. But first, I want to talk about what happened overnight. You are the son of a Jamaican immigrant, and yesterday Hurricane Melissa made landfall on that island country. The news is not good. What can you tell us?
It's a very emotional time because certainly as a son of a Jamaican immigrant, but certainly I have a connection to that island, although I was born
Yeah.
here and my wife as well, her side of the family are Jamaican by way of Brixton,
Mm,
London. And I could tell you that everybody is just we're just in a state of shock of what has happened. But thank God, I can say family. There have been no reported deaths. There have been at least a dozen, I think, on the island. I'm saying personally
yes.
on my
Yeah.
end, but on the island, we've heard at least I think a minimum of a dozen deaths. And I think the biggest thing we'll focus on in the days to come is how can we help
Mhm.
the island recover.
And we know one of the airports is not reopening anytime soon. There are three international airports on the island. One of them is damaged beyond immediate repair, so it'll be even tougher to get in and out and assistance. You know people there. Have you, as you've said, you have family. Have you been able to talk to your family? Because we know that a lot of the communication on parts of the island is out as well.
No, we have not been able to, and this is reminiscent, as we celebrate, not celebrate, but
Yeah.
commemorate the anniversary of Hurricane Sandy. I represented the Rockaways in during that period of
Yeah.
time, pretty much, and it just kicks up PTSD
Sure.
and a lot of those challenges. And so now is really about how do we listen to what communities need. A lot of time governments and people just want to you go forward and say we're going to collect, but it's really a time of
Mm.
listening right now on what are the immediate needs, and what we're hearing is construction materials or the immediate needs
Well,
right
that's what
now.
I wanted to ask you about. There have been multiple deaths as we know, lots of devastation. Just knowing the island like you do, will it be hard logistically to rebuild there?
I think Jamaica has put some things in place in
Mm,
anticipation. The prime minister is great. We're very close to the consulate's
mm,
office. When we are commemorating the anniversary or just celebrating or networking,
mhm.
this is a very close knit community from Jamaica, Queens to Jamaica.
Yes.
So it's all about just hands on deck. And absolutely, will we be able to rebuild? If you don't know anything about
Uh-huh.
Jamaica, very
Yeah.
resilient people. If you know nothing about Jamaicans, yes, we will have our challenges, but people ask me why I'm successful as the borough
Mhm.
president because I work like I work six jobs. Yeah, that's just the Jamaican
Yeah.
way. So we're going to
Yeah.
ensure that the resources are put in place. And I was on the phone with the my one of Congressman member Meeks
Oh,
last
yeah.
night. So it's really about pushing the Trump administration at this
Uh-huh.
point to take this seriously, and how can the US actually as well enable some relief efforts that can help the island
Yes.
rebuild.
And New York City, I don't have to tell you, has the largest population of Jamaican immigrants in the country, and many reside in your borough. How are they doing? Are you hearing from people who live?
They're not doing
Yeah.
good right now. It's a very emotional. My mother-in-law just got back. She was in Jamaica for a month. She got back
Wow.
yesterday by chance.
Wow.
She didn't fly because she knew it was, a storm coming, but got back by chance
Mm.
yesterday. And I can tell you, my son steals her remote. She lives with us. And she just wanted to be glued to the
Yeah.
television yesterday to know what was going on the island because the communication is absolutely scarce. So it's a very emotional time for Jamaicans because we know there have been economic challenges. And I want to say Jamaica has done a lot of work to try to put the infrastructure in ahead of this. Have done a lot of work to try to ensure that the economy is
Mm.
stronger. So this is definitely, I think, what most Jamaicans feel is a punch to the gut.
Yeah.
But once again, Bob Marley taught us the way, one love. There's still always going to be one love, and I anticipate that we will come back stronger after
So you
this.
touched on this. People want to help. What should they do? Because as you mentioned, it's a time for listening and maybe even sending the things you think are helping or not helping. So what would you tell people who really want to help out?
So one, I would say you can't be careful who you donate
Mm,
to during periods like this. And I know this from my time representing the Rockaways. There are people who are scammers, and we want to make sure we're
yeah.
we're we're protecting ourselves from scams. Follow the Jamaica Consulate's Twitter
Hmm.
page. They put up all the information on where you can be helpful, and that's a legitimate page. And I think that's the best thing we can do.
Okay.
But during disasters, as somebody who's been
Yeah.
through it, we should not dictate to countries or communities what they need. Let them tell us what
Yes.
they need, and then we go from
So
there.
important. Thank you. I want to talk to you about the race. So stay right there. We'll be back after this break with more Battleground NYC. We're back with more Battleground NYC, the fight for your vote, one more time with Queensborough President Donovan Richards. I want to get your thoughts on the state of the race as we approach the final days. What are you thinking?
Well, this race is for Zoran Mamdani to lose. But let me say
Hmm.
this. I mean, if Andrew Cuomo is doing the very things that he's doing now, he arguably could have won the
Hmm.
primary. But it's great to see that he's shown up now. I think the polling, as much as the pundits have said Zoran has slipped, all right, with all this negative campaigning, the Islamophobia being
Yeah.
spewed, he's only, I think, based on the Quinnipiac poll that came out today, lost 3 points. It's very hard to overcome a 10% deficit in politics within a few days. And individuals like myself who've endorsed Zoran, I feel confidently, I see even within that
Hmm.
polling that Zoran is winning Queens. And if Andrew Cuomo's from
Yeah.
Queens can't win
Yeah.
Queens, I feel relatively good on where we're headed into
Well, I
election
was going
day.
to ask you about sort of the ugliness of this race in the final stretch. It wasn't very ugly until recently, and to me, that shows a little desperation. But I don't have to tell you. I've covered politics for a very long time. Fear wins a lot. It's a terrific motivator, in terms of turnout. Now we can lament that, but isn't that the case that sometimes that kind of stuff is effective?
Let me say this. I think we're living in unprecedented
Hmm.
times. I think every morning we wake up, we're trying to figure out what Donald Trump is
Yeah.
going to do, and people are waking up in fear. So this page of politics might have worked a decade
Mm.
ago or 2 decades
Hmm.
ago. We are living in a different time where we're seeing ICE kidnap kids. I think I just
Yeah.
heard a story came out of a young man basically kidnapped in Maspeth. People are tired of living in fear,
Mm.
and we don't want leaders in place who are going to be perpetuating Trump talking
Yeah.
points.
And boogeymen.
And I think that that's negative. So either present your
Mm,
plan on what you're going to do to move this city
mm,
forward. And I give Cuomo credit on Second Avenue subway line, LaGuardia.
yeah.
But still, how did that resonate to the residents of Southeast
Hmm.
Queens or the South Asian
Hmm.
community? And the Islamophobia, and I've sat down with Zoran. We're going to have some initiatives that certainly come together that are going to be positive within the Jewish community. I never got that feeling that he's Islamophobic, and I mean anti-Semitic,
Mm,
and and I just find this sort of politics to be
hmm.
desperate, to be shameful, and during a time when we see this at the national level, we don't need it emulated at the
It
local
also
level.
feels, if I can say this, like so 5 minutes ago, I think you were getting at this like 10 years ago, 20 years ago. They tried this with Obama. It didn't work then. And in fact, I think it made him a stronger candidate, and people really rallied around him because of those really ugly attacks.
Obama, Hussein,
Yeah. Yeah.
Hussein,
Barack Hussein Obama. Yeah.
Barack
I got you.
Hussein
Hmm.
Obama. You got Zoran,
Yeah.
Mamdani, Kwame, African name by
Yeah.
the way. These were the same particular attacks lodged at President
Yeah.
Obama, and I think based on the polling I saw, even within the Black community, Zoran's numbers have
Uh-huh.
doubled. And a lot of that has to do with outreach. A lot of that has to do with leaders such as
Yeah.
myself. But this sort of fear, and let me say this, communists, people call Dr. King a
Yep.
communist. These talking points are stuff that Black people who grew up in the 60s who are still here heard every day of their
Mm.
lives. So you're only making this candidate
Hmm.
stronger through this sort of rhetoric.
Yep. I think I agree with you. Are we expecting more record turnout on election day? We saw record turnout in the primary, record turnout for early voting. Are we expecting record turnout on election day?
What I'll say is that, certainly, and there's a pattern within the city that more of your progressives show up very early on.
Mm,
So even within my own election in 2020, you saw a lot of Western Queens show up. Now, for individuals like me, and it's just something about election day for Black voters,
mm,
especially, Black voters have not totally spoken yet.
mm. Yes.
There's just something about election day for us marching in. And part of that was, our civil rights were violated in the
Right.
60s. Part of that was there's this generational divide. Uh, I'm 42. I'm not trying to act like I'm 62. But even for me, it's just something about election day. But I think you'll hear communities like Southeast Queens speak louder
Mm,
on election
mhm,
day. Communities like Central Brooklyn speak louder on those
mhm.
days, those enclaves, because there's just something about a voting on election day. Although we have seen much of an increase in people
Yeah,
getting out
early,
and
right.
voting earlier in our
Yeah.
communities. But for me, it's just symbolic of our struggles, and I'll speak loudly on election day.
Well, I'll let that be the last word. Thank you so much, Queensborough President Donovan Richards. We appreciate you.
Thank you, SC.
Okay, and that's it for us. Tune in tomorrow. Just for the remaining days of this race. We're down to the wire, guys. We'll see you tomorrow for more Battleground NYC.